there's people that quit their 9 to 5 and they're like, I'm going to be a realtor. And I'm like, no, that is not a good thing to do.
I can't help but laugh. You're sitting in this meeting with the CEO of the #1 Remax company in the world and the #1 producer at the #1 Remax in the world. And you're 25, 26 years old. And you don't even really understand.
And I had no idea who they were.
Let's give them some secret strategies. 'Cause you're really good at getting an offer accepted, right? Way better than most agents, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just going to tell you the biggest secrets and hope nobody watches this podcast.
Sitting down here thinking about today on us meeting, the immediate thing that came to me was mopeds to mansions. And why I say mopeds to mansions is when we first met, you were in college and you were a realtor and you were a waiter, right? And you turned that into this killer career. And I'll never forget that you were driving around showing people houses in a moped.
I did it one time.
Oh, was it one?
Because my car, something was wrong with the car. I had a Harley that I didn't trust. So I had a moped that went 70. And so I took that thing down Highway 35 and, I'm just, cruising, I think I had a helmet on, but
yeah,
it was funny. It was funny as hell. Yeah.
The question is, did you sell the house?
Yeah, he bought it. Yeah.
He did. There you go.
Yeah,
do whatever it takes, right?
That was like 10 years ago, maybe.
I feel like there's unique things on like getting into the industry younger. I was 24, 25. You were 19. Like when you're starting in the real estate and mortgage industry, it's like you're growing up in the industry at the same time. So then you kind of have a different perspective maybe when a lot of people get into either of our industries, like as a later in life career versus like our only career kind of really.
Well, I was fortunate to start when I was so young. I didn't need the money. I mean, I was just a college kid, and I got licensed. So I was able to slowly learn, there's people that quit their 9 to 5 and they're like, I'm going to be a realtor. And I'm like, no, that is not a good thing to do. It could be a year and a half till you make any money.
Yeah.
So I think I was actually just licensed in Wisconsin for like 2 years, the first 2 years. And then,
So let's unpack that. Let's unpack that story for you. Can you tell me kind of real quick where you grew up and then, how did you transition into real estate?
Okay. I grew up in New Prague. It's a small town. Went to Wisconsin for school, fell in love with St. Croix Valley, St. Croix County, that whole area. And all my friends just developed their really close friendships from work. And I was waiting tables. And I remember waiting tables on real estate agents a lot. They would come in and they were always, dressed well. They weren't always the nicest people, but I still remember who they all were too. But and I had always worked in sales, so I was just like, what? And I always liked architecture too. I mean, when I was younger, I always wanted to go to parade homes with family members and stuff. We would go, and I always thought it was so cool to see, houses. So, and I still am that way. I still think it's fun looking at a house, whether it's new or not. Found Nicole Suki, actually, her. I found her online, messaged her, didn't know who she was. I had just Googled, and found her. And then she was like, why don't you come on in? And, I came in and I was probably a hungover 21-year-old or something, just strolling in there. And she connected me with Jared Krenz. Then I worked with him forever. And it was really hard to start in a state that I wasn't from. I had no family or friends. I think a lot of people who decide to get into real estate, they're maybe living where their sphere of influence is, people that they know, and I was so young. So the people I knew were also so young, not ready to buy a house. So that was really hard to do.
Yeah, I could totally see that. So, from New Prague, right? So tell me a little bit about, like, is there anything that you learned in your upbringing that all of a sudden that did transition really well for you into real estate?
Yeah. So, it was, I guess my father, my dad, he's just retired in the last year, but he's like the best communicator, good at giving advice. He's so helpful. And, I went to his retirement party at his work, and it was weird because people that he had worked at his company forever, and people that he had worked with over 15, 20 years ago at that company came back for his retirement. And that was just weird. It was just bizarre that and then, they went through the awkward thing where they were like, if anyone wants to say anything, and I was just like, oh, this is weird, like anyone, and people wouldn't stop standing up to talk about him and how great he was and how he helped them in so many ways, like his personal ways, professional ways, working for that company. And it was just like, wow. Like I knew my dad was great at talking with people and caring and just being so helpful. I guess I hadn't ever really witnessed people talking about it like that. And that was weird to just hear and be there. I wouldn't ever ask my mom for advice, but my dad's great with that. So yeah, but that was pretty cool. So I think just growing up to like, both my parents were hardworking, they still are. So I think that just got everything from them. Yeah.
Cool. Were you a troublemaker or a rule follower?
Oh, I never was never arrested or anything. So the biggest deal was just I had a lot of speeding tickets when I was young. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we grew up in the middle of nowhere. We had to drive a half an hour to get to Taco Bell, and we did because that's what there was to do, So, yeah, I was a troublemaker. Not very studious, horrible grades in high school. I had really good grades I shouldn't say that. That's probably a lie. I had better grades in college, but yeah, I was not studious at all. I didn't want to study or pay attention at all.
So now that you're 12 years in, right? Mm-hmm. You kind of had that, I'm assuming you probably had different sections of your career where kind of the college years and growing. Like, was there like a big fork in the road where all of a sudden you're like, this is it?
Well, I always used to think, and I still do think, you can always have a ton of excuses, but getting into the business when you're 21 or that young, I remember somebody came to an open house and asked like if one of my parents were the realtor. And I was like, get the hell out. House isn't for sale anymore, and I was like, and so I did feel like that was a really big challenge for me as being so young. People, how does a 40, 50, 60-year-old person see me and be like, yeah, I should take that guy and hire him to help me buy or sell the most expensive investment I've ever had. So, but I had to, just rely on communication and work hard to be better, improving and things like that. So I had a lot of challenges, just with that. And, and then I graduated and had a couple job offers. I had, and I was like, gosh, do I keep selling real estate? I had been doing it for 4 years, 5-ish, lightly, and I was like, should I go all in or should I just leave it all together? Because I wasn't going to go get a 9-to-5 job and sell real estate. So yeah, I flushed the degree down the drain. Mom and dad weren't happy about that at the time, but yeah. And then, yeah, I grew, our team had switched from one brokerage to another. And then I started working with Wade Hanson, gosh, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe.
That was a big deal. So you got to go from a team format where everybody on the team kind of did, I'm going to say, okay, mm-hmm. But then you put them all together and it looked great, versus going under Wade. All of a sudden you have just a player that's playing on a whole different level than anyone you were on before.
Yeah. And when I met him, I really didn't know much about him. But I knew he was really successful, one of the highest producing agents. And I remember it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday that I had sat down with him. And that upcoming weekend, he was having 2 or maybe 3 open houses that he was doing. And I was like, wow. And I love open houses. I always have. But I was like, he's, even at his level of business that he's doing, like he's still working that hard mm-hmm. on the weekends, And I was like, that is what I like, So I was like, yeah, I didn't know if he would want to work with me. It was, I just kind of walked in unprepared to meet with him. Brenda, who's now the CEO of Remax Results, was also stepped into that meeting too. And I also had no idea who she was. I was just like, who's this lady? But yeah. And so that week, I think he had maybe connected with me 2 days later, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I made the switch. He's definitely been awesome.
I can't help but laugh to myself and think about that as a, 25, 26-year-old, you're sitting in this meeting with the CEO of the number one Remax company in the world and the number one producer at the number one Remax in the world, and you're 25, 26 years old, and you don't even really understand.
And I had no idea who they were.
You're like, how did I even get into this meeting? First of all, right? But you took it and you ran with it and you've crushed it. So mad props to you on that. Like, you've done an unbelievable job. Like, Thanks. Unbelievable. And now you've turned into a top producer yourself, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. So I want to dig into that a little bit, because what's the big difference between, I see you serving all buyers and sellers, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I've seen you help people that buy a $200,000 home or a $3.5 million home, right? Is there a big difference on the way you're working with them, like as individuals?
No, I don't think so, because they're all very similar people still, they all eat and sleep and drink and just do everything that the other person does. So, maybe some of them are more educated on finances, or something, or maybe they're not, I don't know. But I thought about this yesterday because I had a listing appointment and this guy had called me. He said, yeah, I got to sell my dad's house. And he said, it's not nice. He's like, it's like a junkyard. He's a hoarder. And I was like, okay, I didn't really know. Couldn't prepare for anything. There was no sales history. There was nothing on the taxes that even showed a house existed there. And I drove up, and from the road, I was like, that's not a house. It's a shack. Like, there's no way can't even live in that thing. And I ended up telling them. They brought me, they showed me around, and we went in the house, and luckily they were on the same page as me. It wasn't like a shocker to them that the house is beyond repair. I had one last year that was like that too, that I just listed as land. It had a house on it, and I did not list it as a house. I listed it as a parcel of land with some boards nailed together, basically standing on it. And I told them that yesterday. I said, yeah, we can't sell this as a house. That's how bad it was. And I was with them for over an hour. We were laughing, we were joking, and they were, and I told them actually the day before when I was speaking with them, I was like, well, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to be very honest with you. And they're like, yeah, well, that's what we like. And I just was like, yeah, this isn't a house, unfortunately. It's not a house. It's beyond repair. Mm-hmm. And it was, but then I went from that appointment straight to another appointment showing a $500,000 new construction, and I didn't treat those people any differently. But I like educating them all, of course, buyers and sellers. It's just fun to teach them things, especially first-time home buyers, sitting down with them and just going through the process for an hour. Let's get together, very casual run through from beginning to end, because a lot of times they don't even have questions because they don't know where to start. They don't even know how to have a question on it.
Yeah.
They just think it's this big, daunting, horrible, stressful process. And I'm like, well, it's not. It can be fun. And if you're educated from the beginning about everything, it'll just be a lot smoother, And I think a lot of agents maybe don't take the time to do that. Actually, I know they don't. And they're just dragging the buyers through it. And they're just, dragging them around, and they don't even understand what the next step is, or all of a sudden, and it's not a good experience for them.
I think that's why you're so good at what you do, is going back to the micromanaging, where you were saying you were being micromanaged. My observation from the outside is you just went through some intense training. You were held extremely accountable. Mm-hmm. So it looked like you learned how to give a really good buyer consultation and a really good seller consultation, mm-hmm. and educate the consumer, where most of your competitors don't do that at all.
Yeah, or they intend to and they end up not doing it, or they do it and they don't do it well. Mm-hmm. And I don't put on a different persona either. So, I was laughing with friends a couple weeks ago because I said something that was probably not okay to say. And it was funny, of course. And we were laughing. And I said, actually, I think I might have been telling them something that I was talking with my clients about. And we were just laughing. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm not any different, and I'm real with them and I'm really honest with them. And I feel like we have fun and laugh and just, it's obviously a big deal, right? It's hard. I think a lot of people, it's weird to think to like, we do it every day. It's a sale, right? But for these people, it is such a big deal for most of them. I mean, some people it might not be, but it's like they're either closing a huge chapter or they're opening a huge chapter. Really bitter divorce. We do it all the time. Deaths, the estates situations, I had a woman who inherited her brother's farm, and they found him dead on the driveway. The neighbors did. I think they were Amish, so I don't even know how they called the cops. But the Amish people found him dead, and then she inherited this big farm, and she was like, I don't even know anything about it.
They call the same cops.
Yeah, but do they have phones in their buggies? I doubt
They're
it.
out of town.
Huh? Yeah, I guess. But so, and it's weird because again, it's like to us, it's like, oh, we do this every day. You sell 50 houses a year or 100 houses a year. And it's just, it almost is like another transaction, but it's every one of them is so personal to those people. And sometimes it's a really big deal, really bitter divorces, parents passing away and the parents, the kids all kind of worked on cleaning the house out for 3 months. And finally it's time to sell it, so it's just, that's really cool to be a part of that and make it a smooth transaction. And, it's just, I don't know, it's weird. It's something we kind of forget about, I think sometimes about how big of a deal it can be for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's cool. And yeah, it's a fun thing.
Yeah. I like that you're on a team, but you do buyers and sellers. So you help buyers and sellers. So you got this like great split between both of them, right? Mm-hmm. And so then you get to uniquely see in this market, in this moment of what's working on each side.
Yeah. So some teams, they'll split it up and they'll be like, well, you're a listing agent for the team and you're a buyer's agent for the team. And well, if I develop a really good relationship with a client and I'm going to sell their house, and then I have to pass them to somebody else to help them buy a house, but they like me already. They know me, they trust me. So now I have to pass them off. And, I did that years and years ago and I didn't like it at all. So yeah, it's nice to just follow through with the listing, with the buy side. And then, yeah, I explain to people too, when I'm in my listing appointments, I'm like, well, here's what you have to do because this is what buyers are going to be wanting, or buyers are going to point this out. Agents are going to bring their buyers in and they're going to see this. They're going to point that out. And vice versa too. When I'm writing an offer, I can say, well, recently on one of my listings, somebody wrote an offer like what you want to write, or they wanted to add that in. And we said, absolutely no way, that's not possible, And so I feel like it's good to be able to see it from both sides. Cause then when you're working with one person in particular, you can tell them, what the sellers or the buyers are going to be looking for or looking at regarding that offer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're in, early spring 2024. What are the biggest challenges that buyers have right now when they're out looking at houses and they're making offers on homes? What are the biggest challenges that you see that they have to overcome to actually get their offer accepted?
Well, I mean, with the lack of inventory, there's multiple offers on many situations. So I guess it's going to come down to just how clean your terms are with that offer, how well your agent communicates with the listing agent, how well your lender communicates with the listing agent. I actually wrote an offer last night. You are the lender, and I submitted that offer and I copied you on it. I copied Allie, who you work with, on it because I know you'll follow up right away. So I guess it's just a matter of, if you can even write a good offer, first off, keep it clean, waive your inspection if you can justify it. Some people don't feel comfortable waiving inspections. And as we saw over COVID, it was like, well, okay, then it's just not your year to buy a house because you can't inspect it, But, just writing a good offer and reading the market and understanding, it hit the market yesterday. You can't come in, really low sometimes. Maybe it's overpriced, but so it's going to come down to, keeping your terms clean and thinking of it from the seller's standpoint.
Yeah, let's give them some secret strategies. So for anybody watching, like, what are like the buyers? Because you're really good at getting an offer accepted, right? Way better than most agents, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what are like some of your secrets that you're willing to share that are like when they're making this offer? Because someone might be watching this right now and saying, man, in the last year, I went out, I made 5-7 offers, I gave up, right? Like,
yeah.
And then I went back to, I didn't sell my house, or I'm leasing, and then now I'm coming back again this spring, right? So what are like some super secret strategies that they can do that like are more likely to get the offer accepted?
Okay, well, I'm just going to tell you the biggest secrets and hope nobody watches this podcast then. Well, it's going to come down to educating your buyers on what they have to do. And, I actually said to a buyer a couple weeks ago, like, if you were the seller, would you accept that? And they said, well, and then they kind of were like, well, no. And I was like, well, so then we can't do that. Well, or I talked to agents who were like, oh, I wrote 10 offers, 12 offers for these buyers, can't get it accepted. And I'm like, I couldn't remember the last time I did that. What are you doing wrong? Or what aren't you doing, I guess? So, escalation clauses are a big deal that I like to write.
What's an escalation clause?
So rather than throwing a dart at a wall and paying 40 grand above list price, you can write it at list price and say, we're willing to beat any other offer by $1,000 up to a price of X. So rather than, because if a house gets 6 offers, the other 5 could just be full price. And then you're going to blindly offer way above, bizarrely, and you're losing a ton of money because you could buy it for so much less. And you can do that escalation clause for $1,000, or you can beat them by 5. I think I wrote one once where we were willing to beat anybody by 10 grand. So it's just shows the sellers you want it, So that's
a cool strategy.
Yeah. And what's nice about it is there's not a form for that. And I think a lot of realtors don't know how to, they don't understand it very well, but they don't know how to write it well.
You got to call the listing agent and explain it to them then?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes listing agents, I always call them and walk them through once I put the offer in. Yeah. Well, I get offers on listings from agents where it just shows up in my email. They've never called me one time to ask, what's your seller's situation? When do they want to close? What would be appealing to them?
That's another strategy as a buyer's agent, just that alone, right?
Oh yeah.
So then you could be finding out information before you even write the offer.
Yep.
Where they're saying, hey, we want to close on March 21st, right? And you're saying, great.
Yeah. I say, well, what are they looking for? Do they want a quick close? Do they want a long close? How fast are they needing to be gone, essentially? And agents will just word vomit things to you. It's really helpful. And so you can learn a lot about, and then when I call that agent, you of course just kill them with kindness, and you want to come across as being super easygoing and, professional, like what you're doing, because then they'll say, well, they got 2 offers. Well, Dylan called me and we spoke for 5 minutes.
That call is so important. I'm amazed as calling as a lender. Well, I will call and they will tell me stuff. They'll be like, this has been crickets on this place. Where then I'm like, oh, wow. So then I call you. I'm like, hey, I don't know if you realize this. It's like no activity.
Well, and it's just weird that I get an offer from an agent and it just shows up in my email. They don't even text me or call and say, just want to make sure you got that offer. And it's like, well, and then I open it and there's some bizarre terms that I'm like, why wouldn't you have called me first? Why would you put that in there? Like that you want something to stay at the property, because if you would have asked me, I would have told you, no way, that's not even an option. Or you want a closing that's 80 days away. I would have told you, no way, that's not even an option. And then they lose their buyer's offer, doesn't even get countered or accepted because they just didn't make a quick phone call. And then that buyer thinks, well, it just wasn't the right house, or, the buyer thinks we just didn't write it high enough or something. And it's like, well, actually, no, your agent sucks. And they couldn't pick up the phone. They took an hour to drive to the house, show you the house. They took however long it took them to write the offer, probably way too long because they don't know what they're doing. And they put all this time into it and they wasted all your time, got your hopes up. You were excited about this house. They couldn't make a 60-second phone call that would have made a world of difference and possibly gotten your offer accepted.
So let's put that in a little box, right? That if you've made an offer on 12 or 15 homes and didn't get accepted, the market doesn't suck. Your agent sucks.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or, I mean, if somebody's max price is here and they want to write that on a house that's listed 50 grand above, I say, well, if you were the sellers, before you ever took an offer that was 50,000 low, wouldn't you just drop your list price 20 grand, 25 grand? You're so far away. If you were the seller, would you say, yeah, let's just take it, 50 grand less? I mean, and then they're like, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And I'm like, well, yeah, then we can't write on that house. It's way out of your price point.
Yeah. So I'm hearing from you right now, it's escalation clauses can go a long ways. Open communication between the buyer's agent and the listing agent, right? And following up on offers. These are super simple things, right? Now, what else can the consumer do to get an offer accepted?
Well, you probably want me to say this, but it is true, but work with a lender who is reputable and knows what they're doing and is organized and has a solid pre-approval and some weight behind their name. That always helps. That's why I copied you on that offer I wrote yesterday, because you are the lender for that buyer. And I guarantee you or Allie, somebody reached out to that agent and just said, just want to reach out. If you have any questions, they're solid. We have everything we need. Everything's good on our end.
You think that makes a difference?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think for yourself is like your secret sauce in terms of like, what are you just really good at that makes you a great realtor? It could be something that is trained, or it's like, I just innately have this skill and it has helped me become a great realtor.
Just being able to communicate with people and relate to them, is such a big deal for buyers, for sellers, for anybody. I mean, obviously everyone's totally different, but just to be able to find some common ground and just being able to have a normal, good conversation with somebody is something that I feel is so lacking.
Is that in you, or did you learn that like when you were a waiter, or learn that from your dad?
No, I think when I was a kid, I was always getting in trouble at school. I was just chatting
Yeah.
I didn't care. I just wanted to talk.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then maybe you honed it in a little bit over time and turned it into a skill.
Yeah. I mean, I can still talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah. So you're Chatty Dylan.
Yeah, and just being kind, and nice to people. I can make jokes about things that are funny and but
You're very memorable, Dylan. You're very memorable. Right. So
well, you always want to be the better part of someone's day. If they can remember you later and be like, actually I ran into that person and he was funny and he said that thing or complimented me on something or whatever. I mean, it does go a long way, and I feel like people remember you for the most part, people remember me for good reasons. Most of the time, it's something funny that I said, something that everyone else was thinking, but didn't.
I think some of the best make things look easy. But you're a pretty disciplined guy. But like if someone meets you and gets your demeanor, I think sometimes your demeanor will come off like you're not. But I just know from sharing the same personal trainer, like seeing you there in the morning and you're hitting it. And, knowing our accountability calls and making prospecting calls, I see the discipline that comes out in you, but you got this cool demeanor of where someone could kind of guess that you're not that way. Right?
Yeah, I think I can be super professional, but also relatable. And that goes a long ways, for just people in general. So, and, at an open house, for example, I still love doing open houses, and people will come in and they'll say, you're the first agent that we've been to 4 open houses today. You're the first agent that actually talked to us, And I'm like, well, I don't know what they're doing then. I don't know why, I don't feel like I'm working. I feel like I'm just hanging out here talking to a stranger. Like it's not work. I'm just communicating. I don't know why other realtors didn't communicate with you in any way, ask you any questions, So I don't know.
So for your team as a whole, right? So you got you three that work together. Why do you guys dominate so much compared to the next team, right? Like you got the top teams in the East Metro, and you guys are right there, either number one or just right below it. Like, why do you think that is?
Yeah, it is weird because if you look at the numbers, like our team is 3 people.
Yeah, it's not big. Like
No.
most teams are like, hey, we got 15 people that work together. Look at our volume. We're so amazing. And
Right.
you guys got 2 agents and 1 support person, and you kill it compared to the next group.
I think last year we had like 70 million in volume or something like that. And there's teams of 12 agents that don't hit that. I don't know what they're doing. It's just weird. I'm like, we work hard, but we want to work hard, and we do it because we want to. And I go to work because I want to, not because I have to. And our personalities aren't all the same. We're very different. But we work together. We're really close. We all care about each other, and we all show up and want to be successful. And I guess that's just kind of what it comes down to. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what the answer is. Why we work so well together, and we don't. We get together. Not at the office. We hang out. We go out and do things. So I don't know. I don't know why we mesh so well. It's weird. But I mean, I think I mesh with a lot of people. So, yeah.
So if we're helping people here in 2024 and we're giving them guidance on, what is this year's real estate market going to look like? What's your kind of vision of what you think 2024 is going to be in terms of an overall real estate market in Twin Cities?
I think it's going to be tough. I think, inventory is going to pick up, but more people are going to be coming out of the woodwork needing to buy. Rent's not going down, so people want to buy, which is good. You shouldn't rent unless it's from me, because then I can, collect that rent money. But, I just think, it's a really good thing to invest in real estate, and that's a challenge. So a lot of people need houses and they just can't find it. So the challenge is you're going to get pre-approved. You're going to want to work with somebody who knows what they're doing and doesn't waste your time, because that agent not only can waste time, but they can waste a lot of money of yours, and you'll never know. That's what's really shitty, is people never realize how much their real estate agent costs them in money and time, and they just don't know. Like those people that write 12 offers on a house. The rates are now higher, rates are down, or, whatever, or you're never going to find another house that you liked as well as the first 6 you wrote. Your standards are continually dropping for what you need to buy because you just need a damn house, And I think I've said it before, but I think that almost makes me want to keep working, because I feel bad for people that don't, I want to be there to help them.
Well, I appreciate the communication that you do for your clients. I appreciate the fun and professionalism and the education that you do for everybody. You're a stud for getting deals to close. You're really, really good at that. So thank you for taking the time here today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Nice office too. It's beautiful.